So y'all know I'm a keep it real kind of a person, right? So I'm just gonna keep it real. So I had somebody reach out to me months ago and said, "Hey, I want you to start posting information on Hill Harper." I said, "Absolutely not, because I don't know what I need to know before I tell folk to follow." But you know what I did? I went and did my research, and I had an opportunity to talk to him, and I had an opportunity to listen to him when he spoke to the Michigan Black Caucus at the Democratic Convention. And then I had an opportunity to meet Wanda, who couldn't be here today. I knew Rick Blocker, I knew Rick Michaels, and I said, this is a team that I can get behind and I can support. And then I started doing some more research, and I saw that he aligns with not only my family values, but criminal justice and education and supporting young Black men. And it just kept going on. And
come to find out we cousins.
Right, I know. So with all that said, I wholly support everything that he has in store for us. You guys know I don't put my name behind people who do not support the community. And this brother is all about community. So thank you so much for showing up.
Rick, that's how it's done. Hey, everybody.
We've been running all day. I'm just.
Oh, get out of here. Hey, everybody. I'm just, first of all, you don't even understand how much it warms my heart to see this place that I bought in 2016 that I've been renovating ever since filled with us. That's why I bought this house. It's a community house. Mm-hmm. You know, it's one of the most famous homes in Detroit. And to me, what's the use of having these big homes if we don't fill them with community? And we don't fill them with folks. And so this type of gathering is what this Fisher Mansion is all about. And I don't know if you guys, oh yeah, you could see. So when you walked in, I hope you noticed that in the marble there was brass laser cut inlay. The Fisher family crest is in the first set of Pewabic tiles that are there, but then I wanted to make sure that a newer version of a family crest with a big P in the middle, and that P is for my son Pierce, because this home is a legacy home, and I wanted him to feel that he owned this home so that he doesn't sell it when I die, that he keeps it, that he passes it down to his son or daughter, and that it stays in the family. Because to me, and we won't, obviously, I want to get into whatever issues you all want to talk about, but cross-generational wealth transfer is a critical piece of the work that I have been doing, because we have $1.6 trillion of spending power in our community, yet a dollar leaves within 6 to 7 hours. So how do we build cross-generational wealth? How do we create jobs? How do we create economic development if the money comes in, immediately goes out? And so obviously one of the most powerful ways to create cross-generational wealth is ownership of land and property that's highly valuable. But if we leave it in disarray, or if our kids get rid of it, then we can't actually create the legacy value that's there. So that's a little aside of why this home is so important and why it's so important for the community to use it and to open it up to the community. And so with that, I just want to give a little bit of sense of history of how and why we got to this moment. I guess it was about 3 years before the pandemic, because now everybody refers to pandemic. It's like that's like a time. Ryan Coogler, who had directed Black Panther, before he had directed Black Panther, invited me to come to Flint to speak at the very early pieces of the water crisis there. I had already fallen in love with Michigan because there used to be a tax credit here for film production. Yeah. And the fact that the Republican administration got rid of this tax credit because it was actual Detroiters who were benefiting from it you get it. You know that's why. But the point is that I had done a couple movies back to back here. I'm not going to tell you which they were because they're not very good, I'll be honest. But it was a good job. But I met people that are my lifelong friends. People that are going to be standing up at my wedding. People who are my Phi Alpha fraternity brothers that are here. These are people that later in life, you usually don't become lifelong friends, but I fell in love with the people here first. And I said, if and when I have a son, I would rather raise him here than a place like Hollywood. Because I'd rather have him end up like the people here than there. And so, for those of you who don't know, in 2015, I adopted my son Pierce, and that's the P that's in the front. And so I started looking for a home here. And that's how I ended up with this home. And that's when, so about 8 years ago was when I started really investing in this community. And I purchased a coffee shop downtown called The Roasting Plant. And I'm proud that I'm one of the few black owners of an establishment in downtown Detroit. And fighting that fight to create more opportunity and to hire people that represent our community and to hire historically marginalized folks, returning citizens, all the folks that I think are important. We can talk about why coffee if someone wants to really talk about that, and I'm happy to talk about it. But a real quick reason is because I felt that if you actually look at the economics of why so many of our young men are locked up, 80 to 90% of their so-called activities that get them in the system are money-related or money-getting activities. And so I really felt that if I could actually identify money-getting opportunities for a legal addictive substance like coffee, I could actually create income opportunity and a skill or set or trade set that is transferable worldwide. Because if you are a skilled barista, you can learn how to be a barista within 2 weeks. If you're a skilled barista, you can go anywhere in the world and work. And so if we think about the idea of, can you do well and do good? And that's always my thing. Can you do well and do good? Can I build a successful business, but at the same time create other ancillary benefits from that business activity? So that's why. And so having a small business here in Detroit was a key foundation to my investment here. And as my relationships grew here, met more people, engaged in the community more, kept doing the work in Flint. Because a brother came up to me that first time I was there and said, Hill, a lot of different celebrities come up in here, they'll take a picture in front of the water tower, and we never see them again. Will you come back? I said yes. And so I started doing more and more and more work there. I started starting to engage people in signing them up for the lawsuit, because it was made very clear to me that so many people weren't signing up because of distrust of the judicial system, which is warranted, distrust that anything will ever happen, which is warranted, the fact that it's much like Pavlov's dog. You shock a dog once, he jumps very high, shock him twice, not as high, shock him 3 times. After 10 shocks, doesn't jump at all. Traumatized communities stop acting, not because that they don't care, it's just because they don't believe there's any result from their action. So talking to some people, going door to door and saying, hey, your kids have lead in their system, go get them tested so we can get some remediation, etc. That, I did that. Then the pandemic hit. They shut down production of my work, like anything else. Came here, spent all of the pandemic here in this house. And I got calls from Flint. We don't have any water. Can you help us? So I called Ian Van Zant. I immediately, within 3 days, raised $75,000. We bought 2 massive trucks of water. And mind you, none of this is on, we're not publicizing this. This isn't for the cameras. This is to actually just get water in people's hands. So we do that. Very proud, but very sad. There was a 3-hour line of cars to receive water in the height of the pandemic in Flint. It was ridiculous. Shouldn't happen. Fast forward, we start coming out of the pandemic. Fast forward to Debbie Stabenow deciding that she's not going to seek re-election for her Senate seat. A number of the folks that I've been working with started calling me. It's not something I've been thinking about. And they start saying, Hills, you realize it's the first time in 57 years we don't have a black Democratic representative in Congress. Hill, do you realize that the Democratic Party machine is trying to force a candidate down our throat? Hill, do you realize we want choice? Do you realize that we want someone that can raise $20 to $25 million? because that's what it's going to take to compete in a primary. Do you realize that we'd like for you to step up? But then the Flint folks called me and said, do you realize we still haven't gotten paid? You were going door to door telling the sign up for the lawsuit. You realize nothing has happened even under a different administration. So simultaneously, I'm getting fired up by one side saying, you know what? I bought into the idea that they were going to solve these problems too. Yet every 4 years, you go back to these communities, rely on their vote, and then you do nothing for them. It's clear that Michigan is a red state till the I-75 corridor reports. Right? So, when we think about the future, and this is, to me, what I think about, because I think about my son. One of my favorite quotes about the future is a Bobby Kennedy quote, where Bobby Kennedy said, the future does not belong to those who are fearful of bold projects and new ideas, but rather the future belongs to those who can blend passion, reason, and courage into a personal commitment to great ideals and enterprises of American society. And if we break down those words, passion means energy, reason means having a plan, courage means coming from your heart. If you speak French, you know the etymology or the root of the word courage is coeur, which means heart. And I'm always telling young people when I do my talks, you got to step up. And sometimes it can't be about they, it's got to be about you. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to sacrifice? And I had to ask myself those same questions, because those were the questions people were asking me about this Senate seat. Those of you may or may not know, I had the privilege to meet Barack Obama the third day of law school at Harvard. And I looked up to him, and not just because he's taller than me. I looked up to him because he had a sense of gravitas and purpose. He had been out of school for 7 years doing community organizing in Chicago, and I went straight from undergrad. You know, as far as I was a young hot shot going straight to school. I'd won a Sloan Fellowship to help me pay for grad school, and I always used to tease him, I'm getting a master's in government, you ain't, you know. And we would talk about the future. And we both chose non-traditional paths coming out of Harvard. He decided to pass on Supreme Court clerkships, which is what you're supposed to do if you're the president of Harvard Law Review. Everybody thought he's throwing away his future because he's not taking the next great opportunity. Instead, he said, I'm going to write a book. You're like, write a book? This guy's a little cuckoo. And then when I told him I was going to be an actor, they were like, he's really cuckoo. How are you going to get 2 grad degrees from Harvard and do a job you don't even need a high school diploma for? So the deal about that is, for me, I became an actor because of people like Harry Belafonte, Paul Robeson, Sidney Poitier, Ossie Davis, who I got a chance to do a movie with before he passed called Get on the Bus. And I got the privilege. Spike Lee sat me next to Ossie Davis for 3 weeks, and Ossie Davis would tell me stories about if you're going to be an artist, you have to be an activist. There's no debate. Talked about having Malcolm X at his house for breakfast in Harlem with Ruby Dee and Dr. King. Talked about all of this and saying, we are all public social servants. And either you're fighting for justice or you're fighting for self. Don't fight for self, fight for justice. So when people say, well, Hill, you've never held elected office, that's absolutely true. But I feel like I've been in service of our community for all these years through my foundations, through my books, and through my acting. And that's when people say, acting, how is acting in service? I believe that playing intelligent black male characters are in service of our community to encourage young brothers who hit me in my DMs every day saying, this character you played made me want to do this, or this character you played made me want to do that. And so to me, how we represent matters. And so when the challenge came about this Senate seat, and I had to really take it seriously and talk to a number of people, had a conversation with Senator Cory Booker a few days ago, who was very encouraging of this. Had a conversation with David Axelrod last week, who ran Barack Obama's campaign. Conversation with Marty Nesbitt, Barack's best friend. Conversation At 4 o'clock, I'm speaking to Hakeem Jeffries, our speaker. All of these conversations come back to one theme. What's been happening and what's been going on has not been working. And if you can tell me that things in our community are better now than they were 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I'd like to know what formula you're using for that rubric. Because most people tell me that they're experiencing higher debt, that their kids are getting a worse education, that they're paying more, that they pull out a quote from my book, The Wealth Cure, where I said, you can't be free if the cost of being you is too high. For too many of us, particularly in our community, there's a high cost of being us. If you're a young black male, you interact with the police, there's a high cost of being you because that cost may be your life. When we think about solutions, how can we craft them without the people? And party politics have gotten away from the people. Unfortunately, we've allowed it to happen on our watch. And I'll just be honest, at the end of the day, folks count on our votes, yet once they're elected, they ignore us. That's right. And when it's time to get our votes, they're showing up for the first time. You're like, I haven't seen you here before. All of a sudden we matter now. We, the people, have to control the party. It can't be the other way around. That's right. And unless we're willing to actually take our own responsibility for our vote and reclaim our power, we're going to keep getting the same results over and over. I want us to remember our power, and I want to have conversations with each of you about what effective leadership or representation looks like for Michigan and for you all. My hope is, at a minimum, to build a digital infrastructure of engagement for all 83 counties so we can start to control who sits in all of these seats all the way through multiple ballots throughout all counties. The fact that when I started doing some research and investigating this, that doesn't exist was shocking to me. When you think about the millions and millions of dollars that get wasted in all these campaigns, and there's not an extremely robust, shareable digital infrastructure beyond Excel spreadsheets of how to engage voters. I mean, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram shouldn't be more robust than GOTV digital infrastructures. I don't know if y'all agree with me, but it's crazy to me. So I've already engaged an incredible programmer to start building the first of its kind for Michigan. Because it's critical that campaigns just can't be one-offs. We got to stop playing checkers and start playing chess because the other folks are playing chess. That's right.
Yes, yes.
Yet we're playing one-off games and then running against each other and stealing votes. And it's an ego, me thing. We got to get out of that mindset and start sharing data, start sharing information, start coalition building, start creating movements. This is not a me thing, it's a we thing. And that's the critical thing. If we can't create a massive infrastructure that could be shared, and I say this all the time, how powerful would it be to be able to take an infrastructure? And if you want to run in the 13th district, or you want to run in King County, or you want to do this, boom. There's a whole infrastructure that's already there for you to leverage. I'll pass you the ball. There you go. When we're talking about raising $20 to $25 million, and you end up with nothing at the end of that, that's insane. That sounds almost as inefficient as the federal government. And that's what we have to start cleaning up. Because there's no way our communities can start to benefit if we're running things as one-offs. And if we continue to leverage. I'll be one of the first, I'm sure, Democratic candidates you'd ever hear talk about lowering taxes, lowering the tax base, lowering the tax rate. Why? Because we need to put more money back into the hands of small businesses and entrepreneurs and people to create jobs, not take money out. Let's talk about student loan debt. It's crazy to me that somebody would vote against student loan relief. I met a grandmother the other day who just told me that she's been using her retirement savings to help pay off her grandbaby's student loans. You work your whole life to retire, and you're paying off your grand because the skyrocketing cost of education. And in June, it's going to come before the Supreme Court. And because we ultimately didn't show out and we allowed someone within 4 years to stack a court, that's probably going to lose, right? And we're going to bear the brunt of that losing. We have to organize young people. We have to organize students. We have to put more money back in the pockets of families. Put more money back in the pockets of small businesses. If I run, I'm also going to be the only candidate that's an active union member and dues-paying union member who is elected to a national union board. The fact that we got rid of right to work, it can't stop there. We need to go PRO-ACT, and we have to have a PRO-ACT passed federally, and we got to go PRO-ACT plus. PRO-ACT doesn't even go far enough. Historically, unionization has worked. 2016, I was one of the first one fair wage ambassadors. One fair wage is going to be on the November ballot. If I run for Senate, I will be on the November ballot. We both will win. So, with that, I'll open it up to questions, comments. And I just want to say thank you all for being here. It's wonderful to meet you.